Recording. Oh, there we go. All right. Well, let's get this.
Yes, it's recording.
Yeah, I can see it too. Okay. Should we get this party started?
Let's do it.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are so excited that you're here and very excited to be here for support for access to learning disability assessment and best practices in online instruction. Here to present today, we have Jenna French, who's an LD specialist and counselor at Cañada College, and also a KPED LD SIG co-chair. We have Sheryl Kern-Jones, a bilingual LD specialist from Cabrillo College, and a psychologist who is also with Jenna, a KPED LD SIG co-chair. An LD SIG co-chair is someone from our statewide association, the California Association on California Association of Post-Secondary Education and Disability. And that's our professional association for folks working in 2-year and 4-year colleges in offices for disability support services. And so they are KPED interest group co-chairs for all of our LD folks, people in the field of learning disability. And then myself, Patty Flores-Charter, I'm a bilingual LD specialist emeritus. I retired in June of 2019 from Southwestern College. I'm a former FACT board member as well as Academic Senate President. Waiting on the next slide. Oh, there we go. Yay. Okay, so I'll be giving a quick overview. We're going to frame some background information. We're here today to present on 2 different topics. One is some issues that are happening for our LD specialist programs, as well as our students with learning disabilities, or students who are being asked, who are asking to be tested for a learning disability. So I'll be talking about going over the background in our field, as well as a quick history of how our programs came about and what we do. Then we'll have a presentation on those issues that our students and LD specialists are facing in the last few years. They've become such that we are working together on solutions. And part of those are the actions that we will ask folks attending today to take. And then finally, because we're all in this COVID online environment, we do have a few best practices for online instruction as learning disability specialists that we want to share with you. If you would please put questions in the chat, and then at the end of this, we'll answer those. So a bit of background on who we are, what the hell we do. By and large, the biggest part of our role is to provide learning disability evaluations, testing for students who ask for it to see if there, excuse me, there is a learning disability. Oh, my screen just disappeared. Sorry. Oh my gosh. I just lost my screen.
Yep. You want me to pick up, Patty?
Yeah, while I try to get back in. Oh, doggone it.
So learning disabilities specialists, we do learning disabilities evaluations, and we also have expertise in learning and information processing. So we work with students who may have challenges with processing text, like students with dyslexia, students who may have difficulties with auditory processing, with processing lecture information, visuospatial representation, memory, test taking, and problem solving. And we work with the students to learn strategies to help their learning, and also with faculty who are trying to design a classroom to be for universal design and to address these needs. Are you ready, Patty? Or
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm still not in.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just pull up the presentation then. Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
We also provide instruction. So we teach courses and provide counseling on strategies for studying and learning. And the focus of learning disability specialists is specifically on community college students. That's our area of expertise. There is a certification process through the state of California to certify learning disability specialists, and we're certified through the Chancellor's office.
Okay, I can take it over now. Oh man, I'm so bad at learning disabilities. I mean, the technology. Okay, so who can evaluate students for LD and what do we do? Only learning disability specialists or psychologists can do the assessments that we provide and the jobs that we do. We give what are highly confidential and highly restricted standardized tests that are available only from the publisher to licensed or certified professionals, i.e. learning disability specialists.
And I'm going to pipe in there and just say, because we didn't do that top part, that when we're doing highly specialized tests that Patty's talking about, what we're looking for is average to above average learning disability, average to above average intellectual abilities. So students who have learning disabilities are average or above average intelligence, but they have specific processing deficits. And so we're looking, when we're doing the evaluation and these different tests, we're looking for strengths and weaknesses in the patterns of processing information. And we're looking for significant processing deficits that have to do with auditory processing, visuospatial processing, text processing, or holding stuff, a lot of stuff in your head at once, working memory, things like that, as well as looking for a discrepancy between aptitude and achievement. So based upon where their intelligence is, are they achieving in school where we would expect them to be? Or is there something that's mismatching? So they have the capability of understanding the information, but they're not getting there based upon the way that they're experiencing their learning environment in school.
Yeah, so they have this huge discrepancy between their overall average to above average ability and then their ability to achieve as we would expect them to in school. So as learning disability specialists, then we give these highly standardized tests, which also require regular updated training, as well as the publishers require consultation to implement any changes in our field, changes to testing, changes through litigation, legal lawsuits, changes through legislation, or through the Office of Civil Rights decisions that are made. And we do this following the association, the American Psychological Association, their ethical guidelines. Next, let me go over briefly a history of our services and how they came about, and then you'll see how this segues into the issues that we're having now. So in 1973, the landmark civil rights legislation for requirements to support individuals with disabilities occurred. And as a result of that, in 1976, our disability support offices, known as DSPS offices, were established with funding. Along with that funding were specific titles and roles: DSPS coordinator, counselors, and then DSPS LD specialists. Every program had at that time a DSPS LD specialist. In the early 80s, then, the Department of Finance identified great inconsistencies in how our programs, our LD specialists, were defining what a learning disability is, as well as how to assess them, the procedures for assessment across our programs. And this could have led to the Office of Civil Rights being contacted and coming in, or legislation occurring. So the Department of Finance required the Chancellor's Office in the early 80s to solve this problem, have a consistent definition, consistent assessment processes, as well as consistent delivery of services for those students. And so at that time, the Learning Disability Field Advisory Group, known as the LDFA, was created for collaboration on the development of program policy, procedures, and problem solving for consistency in the state. And up until a few years ago, this LD Field Advisory Group would meet 2 to 3 times a year to ensure that consistency in service delivery, ensure that professional training that is required by test publishers as well as the APA, and make sure that everyone had the training that's required on an ongoing basis. So it was this LD Field Advisory Group, along with the Chancellor's Office, that was formed to resolve these issues brought up by the Department of Finance. At the same time, our professional association, CAPED, was formed, and we had one volunteer in this group who was an LD specialist to also participate. And this group resulted with the LDFA forming a research-based assessment model that is used today. It has been updated about 4 times over the 40 years. And also at that time, training through the Chancellor's Office, which still exists today, was required in order to work as a learning disability specialist and to provide the testing for students. Part of what was organized then through the LDFA was that we would review the model at intervals to confirm that there was no or limited bias or over-identification of any group by gender, age, or ethnicity. And I was involved in the last 3 out of the 4 reviews of the model, gathering data. And what we found, because we have been reviewing the model and because we've had our LDFA, is that there were no indicators of bias or over-identification. Now, the LDFA over the years has had oversight of our processes for up to 30,000 students per year served for learning disabilities. And one other data point that's important to understand is that in any given year, over half of the students we serve for learning disabilities are first assessed, they are first tested through a California community college. These are students who come to us because they've experienced great difficulties all through their learning and have questions. They're ready to find out what's going on. And without a learning disability specialist at a college, then there is no opportunity or access to that assessment. And that's our last bullet here. It is that access to LD assessment, we feel strongly, is an equity issue at all of our colleges, that in the past few years since the Great Recession, some colleges have stopped testing. They have LD specialists that they do not allow to test. And so we're going to move on to the next slide while Sheryl's going to give you a bit more information on that.
Hi, everybody. Actually, me, Jenna, I'm going to be doing this slide.
Oh, Jenna.
It's all
cool.
Good. So yes, I will be discussing some ongoing pre-COVID issues for learning disability specialists in the field, as well as students with LD. As Patty mentioned, the LDFA was actually dissolved by the Chancellor's Office in 2015, despite objection from the field. The LDFA was a main source of leadership and support for learning disability specialists. This has resulted in years of no leadership and communication for our field. And this is a huge concern since our field requires ethical professional practice as well as assessment updates. In regards to the instruments that Patty recommended, this is extremely important for LD specialists to have training, practice, as well as collaboration and understanding when these instruments are updated and revised. The LDFA provided this guidance and support when the new instruments came out. Without the LDFA now, it is a huge concern how LD specialists will get this support. Last summer, due to COVID-19, the CAPED LD SIG chairs created the Representative Council within CAPED's LD SIG as a temporary solution to the lack of LDFA. Members include one LD specialist from each region, along with the CAPED SIG chairs. The goal of this council is to support the field and to provide leadership, advocacy, and support for learning disability specialists. Support is particularly important for learning disability specialists as there's usually only one on each campus. They're fairly alone and isolated from colleagues who do the same work. So we want to build a support structure across the state to help support each LD specialist at the colleges. The Chancellor's Office does not provide guidance or a permanent solution for colleges where students have no access to an LD specialist. This is a major equity and access concern, as Patty has mentioned, that I'll go into more detail on the next slide. Also, by not having a learning disability specialist on the campus, it can impact the student's success when transferring. For example, at the UCs, their policy is that students have to have testing that's done within the last 3 years. This forces students to be retested right before they transfer. Community colleges without a learning disability specialist cannot provide this testing. In addition, there could be students that need to take high stakes tests, and they might need to be reevaluated as well. A learning disability specialist might need to work with them to provide the appropriate documentation. So community colleges without a learning disability specialist really can be harmful for student success when it comes to transferring and high stakes tests that they need to take. Oh, I see the comment. I'll speak a little louder. Thanks for letting me know. Next slide, please. Okay. Now I'll talk about the next concern when it comes to ongoing issues during COVID. There has been some serious concerns when it comes to equity. Oh, sorry, I'm looking for my slide here. Ongoing issues, COVID. Okay. There are some serious equity and access issues.
I think I skipped 2 slides, so
okay,
I was like, I'm back 1. Sorry about that.
There we go. That makes sense. Can you go back another one? Yeah. Okay. So, oh, go forward one. Okay. So the next concern is that there's serious equity and access issues for students who have not been identified with an LD, specifically who are concerned about the colleges with colleges who don't have learning disability specialists on the campus. And if there's an LD specialist, but they're not allowed to test. So to clarify, it's very important if there's an LD on campus, we really do want them to do testing. And if a college does not have an LD specialist, there's some concerns around that. We are concerned that the students that do not have access to these assessments. And later in this presentation, we'll explain what we'll ask you to do to help about that. To give some positive data, annually 15,000 students are newly identified with LD by our community colleges. To clarify, these are students who have never had a chance to be tested before. They've never known how they learn, how they process information, and the types of supports they can use. In California, we are really lucky that the community colleges have this free support for students, while almost every other state in the country doesn't necessarily have this free resource. This is an issue because LD testing can cost $3,000 to $7,000 for private testing from a psychologist. Kaiser will not pay for it. I met with a student on Wednesday who had asked Kaiser for a learning disability assessment, and she was told that's an education issue. as if Kaiser doesn't need to help students when they're having difficulty learning due to a disability. Most insurance will not pay for it. I myself have a learning disability, and I had to get tested 3 times in order to get supports throughout my college, my educational career. Each time was $3,000. My independent school would not provide testing, and Kaiser wouldn't provide it either. If my family did not have the SES to get the testing, I do not think I'd be here today. That is why it's so great that California community colleges have free learning disability assessments. We see that there's an equity disparity for students to access LD assessments who are first generation, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and ESL students. This is why it's important for community college to have this free service. All students need to have access to LD assessments, regardless of their SES, race, and preferred language. To help give an example of the type of students we usually support, think of the students in your class who are bright, extremely hardworking, but unable to demonstrate their learning on tests. This could be due to them never being assessed for learning disability. They might be studying all the time, doing all their homework, going to office hours, tutoring, but still not passing the test. That is why LD assessments are so important. So we really want to make sure they understand their learning style, processing, memory difficulties, any accommodations they could use, and study strategies in order to reach their full potential. So some campuses with their LD specialists might only be teaching classes. It's really important that they should be doing LD assessment. It is clearly an equity issue that all colleges need to provide a free assessment for testing. Next slide, please. Great. Now I'm going to talk about what have been some of the challenges during COVID. So since COVID started in 2020, colleges were closing, as we all know. This led to LD assessments having to stop as well. Learning disability specialists are not able to assess over Zoom due to equity concerns, test security concerns, as well as validity and reliability concerns. During this time, the Chancellor's Office offered no clear, consistent guidance for temporary services for students seeking LD assessment. So this led to some colleges thinking of some inconsistent practices and even some unethical assessment practices. There was a clear need for guidance for the learning disability specialists across the state. So good news, the CAPED LD SIG Rep Council got together and made a guidance. They used resources from APA, the CSUs, the UCs, and the Association for Higher Education and Disability, known as AHEAD, which is a national association to support college disability resource professionals. This council developed a guidance for the field to allow students to get temporary accommodations while being put on a wait list for assessment in the future when testing is safe. The members also work with the CSUs and UCs to accept these temporary accommodations at the foyer until testing can start again. Next slide.
Hi, everybody. I am going to talk more about the statewide DSPS issues in general. So Jenna and Patty have been focusing specifically on the learning disabilities field, and we are, of course, part of our DSPS program statewide. And there are also some concerns and issues that have come up and that may have a direct impact on you at your colleges. So we wanted to make you aware of these issues. In the last month, we learned that the Chancellor's Office has decided to dissolve the Regional Coordinators Advisory Group without consulting the field, and they have removed the Regional Coordinators Advisory Group from the statewide handbook. DSPS coordinators are required through Title V, and like the Learning Disabilities Field Advisory, the regional coordinators began with DSPS to ensure timely communication, problem solving, and guidance to the field following Title V and office needs. Our DSPS coordinators head up each office at each college, and the regional coordinators advisory group was their way of communicating with each other. It's important to understand that the services that we offer are not just like regular initiatives that might come down from the colleges, from the chancellor's office or at individual colleges, or new programs or new ideas. We do have the flexibility to have creativity and a lot of individual decisions about implementation, but the DSPS offices are also required to follow federal laws with the ADA, state laws with Title V, and to keep abreast of ongoing legislation and decisions that come down through the Office of Civil Rights. And the coordinators need to have regular communication with each other, to be updated, to have professional development, to collaborate, to deal with specific needs of individual students. One college may have a large deaf population and another college has their only 1 or 2 deaf students. We may have a new law about how instructors are teaching in the classroom and what they need to implement in terms of access to accommodations. And it's crucial that we have communication between colleges so that there's consistency. We keep mentioning this word consistency. This is important for legal reasons because we need to ensure that students have equal access and we have equity for our different groups across campuses. And so this advisory group is crucial to our work, and we're very concerned about the pattern of elimination of DSPS communication channels, both for the DSPS Advisory Council or Advisory Group, as well as the Learning Disabilities Field Advisory. There are new concerns as well in terms of inconsistency because we have this new wonderful program called the CVC Exchange, where many of our colleges are now allowing access to students through the exchange to have one primary college where students are attending and then register through that system to take a course at another college. And so students will very often now be taking courses at multiple colleges, and we need them to have a consistent experience in terms of their access to services. We don't want situations where at one college they have to jump through hoops or are denied certain kinds of accommodations or services, and then at another college they have easy access. So that consistency becomes really important for the student's experience so that it's smooth and easy and consistent and they get the same answers. It also is crucial for our colleges to avoid lawsuits and legal concerns that may arise when students are treated differently at different colleges. So now we've talked a lot about some concerns that we have and issues that have come up, and I'd like to address solutions and actions. So there are 2 main areas that you can help and you can take action. One of them has to do with equity. For equity at every college, we need to have a full-time or a part-time learning disabilities specialist. Now, some colleges that are small and serve a small population, they may not need to have a full-time LD specialist. They may contract with someone to do hours. But most colleges should have a full-time LD specialist to address the needs that Jenna and Patty have mentioned, the huge number of students who are tested for the first time and qualified for services when they come to college. So please share this need with your faculty, with administrators, contact legislators for legislation to require an LD specialist at every college. Reach out to your DSPS office. If there's no LD specialist at your college, ask when a part-time LD specialist will be hired as needed. It's important that you know that the LD SIG, with us having a member in every region, has committed to working with each college and helping you to identify people who can work for a few hours a week or who can work as needed to address the needs of students. So it does not have to be expensive. And we have people who have been trained throughout the state who are learning disability specialists. Right now, we have LD specialists at some colleges who are working overload hours to help to fill the gap at colleges that don't have LD specialists. And they're trained, they know what they're doing, they know how to do the assessment, they know how to work with faculty in our community colleges. And it's a very easy fix as a temporary measure if someone's retired and you're working on hiring someone else or that sort of thing. Please bring this issue as an agenda item to your academic senate. Bring it as an agenda issue to your equity committee. It's to your C committee. It's important that that equity in terms of students with disabilities is addressed by these bodies. And it's super important that we talk about intersectionality. We have a number of students who are students of color, students who come from colleges that are underfunded, high schools that are underfunded, transferring to college, and students who have not had access to services because they're second language speakers and their issues are assumed to be related to language. So it's super important that as we're talking about equity across all of our campuses, that we address the equity needs of the students we are trying to serve. The other thing that we ask you to do right now during COVID is to talk to your DSPS office and ask if the learning disability specialist there is following the KPED guidance for temporary accommodations during COVID that Jenna mentioned. We have very clear guidance. Before issuing this guidance last fall, we talked with the chancellor's office, the learning disabilities trainers, UCs, CSUs, and that guidance is consistent and being used by most colleges statewide. If your college is not using that guidance, it puts students at a disadvantage, particularly students who are wanting to transfer, because we're developing transfer agreements and we already have them in place for many UCs and CSUs, as well as between community colleges. When students are attending multiple colleges, it's important that that guidance be followed. So if they're not following it, request that they talk with their LD-SIG regional representative, and we will help them get started with following the guidance. Following it is super easy. They're already trained. It follows the direct assessment process that we always use, but it's a clear process of when we can't complete that process during COVID, what to do and how to document our findings for transfer. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Patty and we're gonna switch gears a little bit.
And in the meantime, I was able to get back with y'all.
Yay.
Yay, I know. Techno idiot right here. All right, so I noticed there are quite a few questions in the chat regarding students and the online learning environment. And we will run through our presentation and then go back to them. We do have answers for those and what our students and faculty can do. But first, I want to talk a little bit about design of online instruction. There is a development that happened years and years ago once we started having technology, like after microwaves, okay? So there is a universal design that has been developed at two universities. One is the University of Washington, and the other is the University of North Carolina, and it's called Universal Design. With this design, when courses have been designed in this way, then participation is no problem for every student, and no modification should be needed for the student to participate. And just some quick examples here are that all courses are designed with a minimum of 12 or 14 point font. Then all students can read easily without eye strain anything that's posted, whether there's low vision, people that use glasses like myself, where I need to see that 12 to 14 point font, tagging pictures, captioning videos, making sure that if you have any pictures or visuals, that it's clear why they're important. Or if you post something that's funny, you know, to again develop that community spirit of learning, then tagging them, typing in what is funny about it, making sure that they get the gist of the humor. And with a lot of these visuals, they will be used by screen readers. And screen readers are often used by students with learning disabilities, students who are blind, ESL students will look to the captions also. It's been found that these are very beneficial to everyone. Also, providing guidance for errors in selections. What this refers to is designing your course and thinking ahead about students that might go somewhere they shouldn't for an assignment. They can't navigate exactly and seamlessly into where they're supposed to be. And so doing that and providing some built-in guidance through text to help them get back to where they're supposed to be. Also, multimodal flexibility and options. So an example of this is where students can listen and comprehend everything about or see a video. That either way, they get to fully participate and comprehend the important points being made in that delivery system. And last is one that I seriously have needed for the last 15 years of my career. And that is high and consistent contrast. It's not pretty, but it is the best mode of presentation for everyone. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to conferences and seen PowerPoints where I just can't see them sitting in the front row. So what you have here is the best mode of presentation, a black background with white, but it's not very pretty. So as long as you keep in mind that you want to look for high contrast when you're designing a course, or if you're teaching hybrid, or if you're just using online as a resource, this will greatly help everyone.
I'm going to continue to talk about best practices for online instruction. And one thing that's very important is building roadmaps into your course. Start off the course by talking in general about how students can be successful in your course. What does it take for a student to be successful? How do they navigate your course? What are the important things that they're doing? And also building in redundancies so that students can see things in multiple ways. For example, listing the assignments on your syllabus, as well as putting them on the calendar. So students can easily find things, and students who use different ways of looking at and tracking your course have options. It helps to avoid student frustration and students don't get lost, especially if you've gone over the whole course at the beginning. It's also important to create overviews. So before launching into subjects or a whole new section, talk to them about where you're going, what the new topic is, what you're going to be covering, and how that's going to happen. Maybe there are some lectures, there are some videos, there are some assignments. Give them the overview of where you're going and connect that to the last subject, what you've just been through and how this is different. Also, at the end of each section, it's helpful to have reviews. We all talk about doing reviews before a test. That's important, but also conceptual reviews, reviews of where they found things, where they did things in your course to help them to learn that topic. Providing checklists or to-do lists is also very important when you're giving larger assignments. So if students are working on a research paper or they're doing a presentation, then having a checklist or a list of to-dos of the things that you want them to be sure to include. Maybe you have very specific instructions about the way you want them to format and turn in their math problems. Then it's important for you to have a checklist of, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? So that they are sure that they know exactly what you're wanting. It's very clear, it's in one place. This helps to reduce anxiety. It's easier for you as an instructor. It's easier all around. Also, a lot of our online environments that we're using, Canvas or whatever your electronic management system is, they have a lot of functions and features, and those are wonderful when you're using them. But there's often features that you're not using. Try to turn those off so that they're not in the way and students don't end up going on dead ends looking for things. And it's very helpful to have a consistent modular structure in organizing your course so that students, as they go through the course week to week, they know that the assignments are always in the calendar on the syllabus, or they know that every Thursday is when homework assignments are due, or they know that every Monday you're going to be reviewing for the quiz on Tuesday. Have a consistent structure so that when they look, they get familiar. It feels familiar. With the environment feels familiar, just like the classroom might feel familiar as they go in the classroom and know where to find things. Also, it's very helpful to have instructional options for learning. The content that you're providing through maybe written stuff online, or you have a textbook. You may have lectures that you have video recorded or have links to outside resources on videos. It's helpful for students to have many different options to learn the material, and also to have resources for more learning if they're having trouble accessing or understanding that material, like Khan Academy and other kinds of outside resources. Another important concern is how we evaluate learning. We're all faculty who are trying to teach students things, and we want them to learn. Of course, we need a way to assess whether they're learning. We want to do that as we go along so that we know if we're doing a good job or not. Is what I'm doing, are they getting it? And also to assess whether they've mastered the material, whether they deserve to pass this class. And so we often talk about tests, but there are many different ways to evaluate learning. When we do tests, there's multiple choice testing options, essays, short answers. It's important to mix those up. Students with different kinds of disabilities have a harder time or an easier time on different kinds of tests, as well as all of us in terms of strengths and weaknesses of how we learn and how we can show what we know. So mixing it up is very helpful. Offering students options is also helpful. You can also do research papers. You can have a student do a presentation to the class or prepare a presentation for you. It's best if you can allow students to choose and show you how they know in their own way that works best for them. Your job as an instructor is to assess whether they know the material. But if you aren't allowing choice, mix it up so that students have a variety of different ways to show their knowledge. Also, when you're giving a test, allow the option for students to go back and answer prior questions and to proofread their work. We're finding that many instructors now are locking down a test, so you answer one question and it disappears and they can't go back. That does not work for many students. Students need to plan ahead. They need to be able to answer the things that are lower stress. They need to be able to activate their brains about the material. If they're under time pressure, they need to be able to make sure that they can answer as many questions as they can and then go back to the ones that they need to take more thought to answer. They also need to proofread. If you have a student who has a spelling issue, they may have a lot of anxiety over spelling things right. Even if you're not judging for spelling, they want to impress you. They want to show that they know what they're doing. And with math, maybe you have an advanced calculus class, but the student isn't so good at addition and subtraction, and they need to check their work. At home and in their work world, they would be using a calculator and double checking their work on an ongoing basis. Taking the time to do that during a test is hard under time constraints. It's very important that students can plan how to do their test and go back and forth between items. Also, our goal when we're teaching is for students to master the material. And so it's important to offer opportunities for test corrections and retakes of exams. Our goal is not that students can really quickly answer questions on one day very, very quickly and completely. And it doesn't matter if they do it on other days. We want them to know the material completely at the end of the course. So offering the opportunity to correct errors and retakes is important. They can then go back to that material, find out what they didn't understand, what they didn't learn, and then have an opportunity to learn that material. And students who really are working hard are going to do that. They're going to try to work and learn the material in the course. Allow them that opportunity. It's also very helpful to have low stakes testing. So having multiple smaller quizzes instead of a huge midterm so that you can assess how students are doing for your own knowledge and they can assess how they're doing. They get practice with taking your exams. How do you ask questions? What are you expecting? They also, if they are caught in an area that they don't understand, they can meet with you, they can go to tutoring, they can study that material to build mastery. It also reduces anxiety. It's not an all-important one test. And if they have one poor grade, it allows them to recover. This is crucial for equity. If a student has a sick family member, if grandma has died, if their car breaks down, if their technology breaks down during the test, you don't want that one day and that one grade to impact their ability to be successful in your course. So it's very important that you break things up so that they have many different ways to show mastery of the material.
Great, good job. All right, I'm going to be talking about some more online instruction strategies. So some more best practices for online instruction could include a very clear syllabus. In the syllabus, we recommend having daily schedules of the key topics in the lecture, the reading assignments, and include the content and chapters that are expected on each test. Students do well with structure and clear directions, especially students with LD. It might take them hours to study, so please be clear on exactly what they need to know and where they can find it. Study guides can be very helpful to know exactly what terms they need to know and what content they should be studying. We also suggest that you clearly state in the syllabus the methods of communication in your class. Explain how students can have private conversations with you, possibly drop in office hours, or even how to make an appointment. Explain what is the turnaround time for students to hear back about assignments, as well when they can hear back from you when they send an email. Also, students might need help learning email etiquette, such as encouraging students to use complete sentences when they write emails. I know as a counselor, I've experienced those. Students sometimes need really good role modeling on email etiquette, how to even write an email. Professors could even give example emails on their Canvas website to show them what are some examples of how emails can look like. I've had students email me and say they didn't even know how to contact professors or how to write it. So please try to encourage them to learn how to write emails. As Sheryl has said, consistency is just so important for students. Please try to stick to your syllabus schedule, make sure there's really structure for each week, and try to have the same office hours weekly and encourage them to go. I hear from students' office that they don't really feel comfortable going to the office hours or they don't feel welcome. So really do what you can to make sure they know that they want them to attend and ask questions. You can even give them examples of what they can ask during office hours or what they can do there. Another suggestion is try to use humor in the classroom, as this can be helpful to make the student feel at ease. Especially during these times, you want to make school fun, and humor is a great way to do that. It is a great way to bring people together. In addition, please be flexible with students. When things go wrong, and they will, we need to be prepared. There could be unpredicted, unavoidable life situations that are going to come up for you and the student. So please allow students time and options to recover from these life challenges. Next slide, please. All right, PowerPoints. When making PowerPoint slides, add more explanatory details on the slide. Don't just have the term or the vocabulary, try to write out explaining the concept. This is because not all students process auditory information well. They might need to see the information on the slide. In advance of your lecture, you can post slides or notes and even have blank sections for the students to be able to fill in. If you're going to use videos, keep them short, to 10 minutes or less. If you find students ghosting you, but then they come back to the class, please give them a warm message, welcome them back. There could be so many reasons why they had to miss school or miss some classes. You really need to be compassionate and understanding, especially during these times. Next slide. Another suggestion for online instruction is to try an orientation with a scavenger hunt prior to the first class. This is when you have students go on a scavenger hunt to learn about resources on campus or even your own class. They can get a signature from the different offices or find the first word on their website so that you know that they went and checked it out. This is a fun way to get students to learn about supports available to them. And the scavenger hunt could even be your own class on Canvas. We recommend that you try it yourself or have someone try it before students do. Also with your classes, try to think about locus of control. This refers to how strongly people believe that they have control over their situations and experiences. Encourage students that they have control in their learning and doing well in their classes. If they do the work, they go to office hours, ask questions, they probably should do well in their class, but encourage them to really try and use all the resources. Try to create a community of learners who support each other. You can emphasize that there are diverse strengths and weaknesses in each student when it comes to learning. Everyone learns differently and need to understand how they learn. If you are working with a student who's unsure how they learn, please connect them to your local learning disability specialist or study skills available. Professors can help students get control of their students' learning in several ways. Provide a preview of what they'll be learning each week. Communicate and answer questions quickly and clearly. Create study groups within your class. Share any study tips that have helped students in the past. And provide
Jenna?
resources. Yes.
Jenna, can you speak louder? We still have people who can't hear.
Oh, okay. And provide any resources that could help them, such as tutoring, videos, and books. Oh, and I see the question about ghosting you is, I know we'll get to questions, but is when a student maybe disappears from your class. You don't know where they are and then they come back. Next slide.
Oh, now we are, it's me, Patty, duh. All right, so this is just a reminder of the actions that we're asking folks to consider and to take for equity. One of the suggestions that we had to the chancellor's office was just during COVID and before, where there is no LD specialist or they're not being allowed to test, is that they help colleges with hiring or finding a part-time specialist who will come in and do testing just on an as-needed basis. I've done this before as a bilingual learning disability specialist, where students who speak different languages, not just Spanish, were referred or asking for testing. And so for us, the part-time specialist is a very affordable solution to that, and has been. So in order to help us, we're asking you to contact your legislatures, let them know that there is a problem in that there is no requirement for every college to have an LD specialist, whether full-time or part-time, and to ask them for legislation that would require that, because then it would have to go into Title V. Reach out to your DSPS office. If there is no LD specialist, ask when at least a part-time will be hired, again on an as-needed basis, and ask what you, the Senate, can do to support this. There are very affordable solutions. Bring this issue again to the agenda of the Senate and Equity Committee, and then share with other faculty and administrators. We are just so worried about those students who just have no opportunity on campuses that choose not to have an LD specialist in any way. And what we'd like to do now is move to the questions in the chat. If it's okay, I'll take the first one, and then we'll just go around with Jenna and Sheryl. So the first one that I have here is from Ashley. For those who have come in, oh wait, sorry, is from Dean Chen, who's put in a number of good ones. How do we advocate for disability students to help many new students at at any college where they don't have an orientation and navigating college life? In any issue or concern that you may have for a student with a disability where something might be missing, reach out to the coordinator of the program and make that request. If you see a student struggling, work with them to have them reach out to the college and make that request. This is empowering for the students. It also, if a message comes from you and a student, our college had an orientation to college course for our students. We had something online that was accessible for students also. But if your college does not, ask for it and keep asking until you get it. Let's see, during remote learning, if a student is struggling, our disability offices are still open. So refer them to the office for via email specifically. And if they don't get a response, then what we always tell students to do is to go to the dean. First, you go to the source, and then if the student isn't getting the help they need, then they should back that up by going to, you know, a higher power. Jenna.
Yes. Okay. How do you provide accommodations during remote virtual learning? Great question. So in my experience, because I am a learning disability specialist and a counselor, is that there's actually been some great process with universal design that a lot of accommodations are actually built in now to the class. So one example is our students with needing note-taking assistance. You know, now that a lot of Zooms are being recorded, that the note-taking is built into it. So we're seeing less students needing to have a note taker and other supports because it's built into the class. Along with extra time on tests, professors are finding it very easy to provide the extra time. And I've even had professors just giving more time to all students, so it's built in. So I have noticed that, you know, that a lot of these accommodations are being built into the class, but there really has been more of an easier transition When it comes to proctoring of tests, colleges are able to proctor by having a staff member do a proctoring over Zoom. So, you know, we also have these great listservs for the DSPS field that have been collaborating and working together to help transition move to virtual learning. And so I feel that the field has been strong in supporting each other and coming up with solutions.
I think we're good now. It's just getting out of chairs like those I cannot do. I don't want to stand for 30 minutes because you're going to be picking me up off the floor. I just
Okay, I think we're back.
Yeah, so I'm going to go on. I think the next question is, have you found these assessment tests to have bias? I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but the assessment instruments that we use to assess for learning disabilities are instruments that have been developed over many years. They're instruments that have questions and are they're verbal questions. There's tasks that people do. There's visuospatial things. There's a lot of different things that we're assessing, and that they are developed in a standardized way. They're administered to tens of thousands of people across the country, and they're standardized. So when these tests are developed, they are given to people who are in their late teens, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way up till their 90s. They're given to people of all different races and ethnic groups in urban areas, in rural areas. They are administered to a huge part of our population, and then statistics are run and evaluations are done to ensure that there's representative samples that affect each conclusion. Individual items are removed when there's any bias found for individual items. And then a process is developed to use the items and ensure that they are measuring what we want them to be measuring and not other kinds of things. Everybody who does these instruments has to follow a certain procedure. So we ask the same questions in the same way, we set up the room in the same way, we score them in the same way. And part of this consistency of practice is required. All of the people who do these kinds of assessments are very well trained. And when we implement new tests, when revisions come out, that is part of why it's so important that we have the LDFA, because professionals need to practice with others on any new items that are added or changed over time. So, you know, for example, there may be pictures of things in the test that become outdated. We used to have an old telephone, and new people, you know, younger people don't even know what an old telephone looks like. So there are certain kinds of pictures within the visual environment or words that we use that change in our language. And so those need to be updated over time. And then the learning disabilities model that we use in our California community colleges is some of what Jenna and Patty were talking about, looking statewide at our population in California and how we apply these standardized instruments to that.
Thanks, Sheryl. One other thing is that we can give these tests to people who speak different languages. We can give them to students who are deaf or hard of hearing. We know what to do when we have someone taking the test who already has a disability. Carlene had a question regarding a student saying he didn't understand, but it was usually things that I had not covered and would be covering in the next sentence or two. Is that considered LD? One of the nice things in a lecture is asking students like we have here to wait until the chat, and then they can, until the lecture is finished. Whether or not that is considered LD, that really wouldn't be enough to go on. You would also look at how well they were communicating in this case, not very well. how they were doing on assignments and tests, how they were participating in class. However, you could reach out to the LD specialist on your campus, let them know what's happening, not tell them who the student is, there's no confidentiality, and just get their feedback from them. These are the kind of things where we have the training in. So be sure to use that resource. Jenna?
Yeah. All right. I believe next one. How do you think schools can help disabled students who have a harder time living independently to deal with the economic effects of COVID-19 and the pandemic? Great question. And so each area is going to be a little bit different, but I recommend that professors talk to their disability office to see what local agencies are available. Some statewide ones that I'd recommend is Center for Independent Living. Those are, it's around the state to really kind of help provide guidance and support. As well as DUR is a wonderful organization where it can help students with coaching around career and evaluation. And also really look at what your campus is doing too. I can say for Cañada, we have, with the CARES money that came from the state, really have opened up supports for students during these times, if it's a financial piece that's a concern as well. But there's definitely organizations that's even pre-COVID that could be helping students when it comes to independent living as well.
We are used to reaching out to other community agencies, so do contact the office.
I'll take the next question. I have found that lots of LD accommodations as expensive. Kurzweil costs over $2,000. How will students get it during remote learning? There are many software programs and technology solutions that are very costly, and thankfully there are a lot of them that are free or can be made available through the colleges. So this is going to depend upon the particular student and their needs. Kurzweil is mentioned, and that is one of the software programs that's used for what we call speech or text to speech. So a student is reading a book, and the book can be in an electronic format, so it's up on the screen, and Kurzweil will highlight each word and read it out loud. So for students who have difficulty accessing the reading of the book themselves because maybe they have dyslexia or something like that, that can be a very helpful tool. Some colleges offer Kurzweil, and other programs like Claro is another one that's commonly used to the students. So they offer a license. A lot of these programs, you used to have to buy the whole software program, and now you can have access. So the college can buy it and give access and give individual license so that students can log on online, just like any other kind of program that they log on online, and they can get access that way. So you can advocate for your college making that available. There are also a number of free programs. Computers these days come with built-in programs that are completely free, and students sometimes just need some extra help from your assistive technology people at your campus to learn how to use their computer and access what is already there, or to use free programs. So the answer is different depending upon exactly what the student needs. Some students are using these programs also for writing, and they may be writing a paper and then they need to hear back what they've written to ensure that there aren't errors, or they're using them to help organize the material. And so there are different software solutions, but they can be the college purchases it and makes it available. The student uses free programs and you assist them in identifying what those are, as well as, like Jenna was mentioning, the Department of Rehabilitation and some other programs will fund that. Some of the programs for the state for students who have become unemployed and qualify for certain kinds of funding to like CalWORKs, sometimes they will also fund some of these programs for students' needs.
I'll tag on. There was a comment in the chat, and we're rounding on to 12:15 regarding a college that doesn't have a assistive technology lab. So all of our colleges were funded to set up assistive technology labs. So I don't know what the hell's going on there. And there was a budget change proposal to give them one-time monies to update technology, obviously. And there is a budget line item in our statewide DSPS allocation that is just for technology. So I'm not sure what's going on. Reach out to your DSPS coordinator and ask them why they don't have that. They have to have someone that provides support to students. And like Sheryl was saying, they can give them remote access. So the student just has to know to ask. So if a student contacts you and says they don't have what they need, please refer them back to the DSPS office and follow up. Tell the student, let me know what happens. Let me see what's next. There's the Independent Living Center. Some LD specialists are very busy. They may need an assistant. Again, the solution to that would be at a minimum to have one LD specialist funded. They can go do what we call a budget change proposal, which would permanently fund a single position. And then if colleges already had one, or as they go through the process of new hires, deciding how many new hires they're going to have and who's going to be hired, then DSPS programs can compete for those also. You're right. We do a lot of work, but this is our job. And if we can't do it, we should step back and let someone else. That's kind of my feeling. Just like you. Let's see. Jenna,
I've had some requests for contacting us, and we had that as the last
on the last slide.
And so, but I've just put it in the chat so it's easy to copy and paste. So those are our names and our email addresses, and you're free to contact us and ask further questions. We're happy to be a resource.
And we'll continue answering these for anyone that might want to stay on. If you sign off, we realize you need to go and get a bite to eat. Is that okay, Jenna and Sheryl?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So Jenna, I think this next one was Dean Chen at 11:26.
And thank you everyone for coming.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your interest in this area and the students, and we're very happy to be a resource to all of you.
All right, so the next one was, sorry, I missed we're on.
It's Dean Chen at 11:26.
Okay, someone told me that Medi-Cal cover accommodations, so they should cover assessment testing. That is strange. So I
already addressed this one in the chat.
Oh, okay.
You can move on to the next one.
Okay.
Okay, Danza. Have a great alt media school lab, so they should have a lab. I think we talked about that. Captions are useful for times audience has speaker. Yeah, captions. I'm not sure if we actually had it for this, so don't maybe we didn't model that one, but yes, captions during a Zoom is definitely a good idea. Apologize.
Well, I think that FACT turned on the captioning. I thought they told us it was going to be automatically turned on, and individuals can turn it on in Zoom. So if you have students that need it, they should be able to turn it on themselves. And the quality of captioning in Zoom is unbelievable. One last thing, when captioning has always been a requirement. And when the Office of Civil Rights stepped in and said, you colleges, you must caption everything, what was found was that all students benefited, and most especially students learning English as a second language. How cool is that?
I just want to put, actually, I can't turn on the captions right now. I just want to point it out. I can't find that button myself. Yeah, so.
I had that button in the main,
I see it.
And I have it still here. So I think individually we can turn it on. We just can't for the whole group.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on because I know time's sensitive.
Yeah. And I will mention one other thing, which is that the captioning is scrolling by quickly. And so there is a way for when you're doing Zoom and doing a recording to pull out the transcript. And so a lot of students online benefit from having access to note takers or notes. And one way as a faculty member that you can do that is to pull out the transcript. So it's a written document, it's a PDF. And Zoom does that automatically. And so you can just go to your recordings and pull that out and make that available to students. And some faculty do that regularly. When they post their Zoom recording, they also post the transcript.
Okay, Sheryl, you're up.
Okay. Where are we? Let's see. A common concern from students regarding accommodations is that even if DSPS LD specialist requires enforcement, when it comes to within the classroom environment, professors are often reluctant to comply with the regulations. Students voice that professors view them as incapable rather than someone with a disability. This problem seems to arise due to closed mindset and inequitable perspectives of certain individuals. How can schools address the issue of professors not following accommodation regulations besides complaint forms? Many students have voiced that even after a complaint, the situation is not resolved. So this was a big question and a really important one. Thank you, Sunny. And I think she has stepped out. She sent me a private message asking for follow-up. But for others who have this concern, I think one thing that's really crucial is that you do campus-wide professional development. So we at our college, we regularly offer flex workshops for our faculty, and sometimes we include information that's in the required college-wide meeting. So that we educate our faculty about disabilities and about, first of all, their legal requirement to comply with the law with accommodations and the fact that they can be sued. And if they're not following the college policy, they will individually be liable. They will not necessarily be covered by their college's insurance and coverage if they're individually making a decision to not comply with accommodations that have been sent to them from their disability office. So they have individual liability as well as the college having liability. So that's one thing you can do. But it's also really important for them to understand what these accommodations are about. A lot of people have misconceptions about it. And it's important that they know that students are required to master the same material, to perform in the same way, to learn the same material that all other students do. But it's just like requiring me to do a class without my glasses. I can't see the board. It's not a reasonable expectation. And it's not reasonable to say, well, she can't have glasses because other students don't, or because I don't feel like offering you the option to have glasses today. I don't like looking at the glare of your glasses. So it's really important that we educate our faculty as a whole about disability rights. It's important that we have common conversations. I think that many faculty are very responsive when we talk with them one-on-one, and I would encourage you to advocate on behalf of your disability office and get them into, we go to department meetings. We'll go to the math department meeting and do a presentation, and we'll do case reports on certain students. And we talk to the English department. We work individually one-on-one. If a student is having an issue with a faculty member, then I will go with that student to meet in the office hours with that faculty member. And I can do that online through Zoom with a meeting, and I will help the student and help the faculty member to come to some understanding. And and try to resolve that issue. There are many different things we can do. We also provide a statement that every faculty member has on their syllabus about the services, and we encourage faculty to mention it at the beginning of class. We talk a lot about numbers, and students often and faculty often are helped by understanding that, you know, at our college, 4 to 5 students in every classroom is served by our department. And so this is not a rare thing, this is a common thing, and faculty should be used to using it all the time. And we've gotten to the point now at my campus where I have faculty who are teaching physics and math and who have tutors working with them who are teaching their students in the earlier courses. They refer those tutors to evaluation sometimes because they get to know them and they know they're brilliant and they know this material and they're teaching other students, but they don't do so well on a test. They're passing the test, but they're not doing as well as they can. And they see that there's something going on with their learning. And so it's important to destigmatize and to address this campus-wide in terms of professional development. Tell them certain individual students' stories about success, as well as having specific things about their legal responsibility. And sometimes you need to really, as in our office, talk to them about their legal responsibilities and give the student the phone number for the Office of Civil Rights if they need it.
Okay, I wanted to go back to Dean had a comment about ebooks. And before I retired, the last 3 years, we were working on our campus because there is a federal requirement that all ebooks be accessible. The problem was publishers aren't required at this point through federal law to do that. However, if a faculty member uses an inaccessible ebook, they are liable for that. And it also means a student can't read the frickin' book, you know, at a real practical level. So there are free places to go. And I'm not going to remember, it's been 3 years, to search for accessible textbooks. Typically they're offered for free. Colleges were supposed to put together, they're required through state regulation to have a logo that identifies on the published list of books which textbooks are ebooks and are free. So we had put together a committee that work together to educate faculty on this, to help them understand what's required and those websites to go through. It's all these 4-year colleges that have grants that have these libraries of accessible ebooks. And in our college, I fought for, and we got someone who was working with all faculty on accessibility, but then also screening these books to check them for accessibility. So I hope that helps. If nothing else.
That's pretty good. Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you. All right, this one should be easier. Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, you done with your 30 minutes, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got captions. Douglas, I think we're hearing you here. Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Jenna.
I actually have to run to another. I apologize. I can't stay on. I have I'm doing an interview, so I have.
Oh, okay.
But I hate to leave you guys. So.
Oh, Jenna, thank you.
Jenna, thank you.
I'll have to leave, but thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
There's somebody here who's asked about someone who grew up, a student who grew up in a closed religious group that did not speak English. He had no concept of deadlines or assignments. I couldn't find anyone to help him. International wouldn't because he grew up in the US. DSPS wouldn't because he didn't have one of their conditions.
Oh.
What could I have done? That sounds like a challenging situation. I think that, you know, the new options for offering non-credit courses sometimes some colleges, and I don't know about your college, but some colleges are offering more introductory courses on how to be a college student, what it takes. And some of them through the counseling and guidance departments offer that. So there is sometimes an introduction to college and what that requires. And sometimes there is a non-credit course about, you know, how to work with others, how to work in groups, how to, you know, how to have leadership, and some of those things can sometimes help. The other thing that I think might be helpful is working with a therapist. Many of our campuses now have mental health support, and a therapist can help with the discrepancy that they're experiencing between their own personal cultural experience and the culture of the college, and what it's like to have these new demands and responsibilities and how to navigate that on a personal level. So I would hope maybe a combination of the individual as well as a course. But I don't know the particular options at your college.
Yeah, I think too, if they didn't speak English, many of the ESL faculty are quite supportive. So I'm not sure you could reach out to an ESL faculty member who could kind of, take them under their wing. And ESL programs are pretty good about orienting students to college, because many of them don't have that experience or haven't recently, and they'll help with it. It looks
Our
like
room
our
is about to
breakout room's gonna close.
So just feel free to contact us if you have any further questions. Thank you so much, all of you, for sticking in all
Thank
this time.
you.
Take care.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. Look for your support and enjoy the rest of the conference. Woo!
Bye, everybody.